Imagine your power goes out, the stores are empty, and the only thing standing between your family and hunger is what you already have sitting in your pantry. Greeks have known this feeling before. Through wars, economic collapse, earthquakes, and decades of uncertainty, the Greek people developed one of the most sophisticated food preservation cultures in the entire world. And today, I am going to walk you through every single one of the 25 survival foods that Greek households stockpile, why they chose these specific foods, how they are made, and why these items can last for years or even decades without spoiling. This is not a generic prepper list. Every single item on this countdown is deeply rooted in Greek culinary tradition, history, and necessity. So let us count down from number 25 all the way to the number 1 survival food that Greeks have been depending on since ancient times. Number 25. Trahanas. This is one of those foods that most people outside of Greece have never heard of, but inside Greek homes, it is an absolute staple that goes back thousands of years. Trahanas is a fermented dried pasta made from a mixture of cracked wheat or bulgur and either sour milk, yogurt, or buttermilk. The two main varieties are sour trahanas, called xenokondros, which is made with fermented milk, and sweet trahanas, made with fresh milk. To make it, the wheat is combined with the milk, allowed to ferment for several days, then rubbed together by hand to form small, crumbly, irregular pieces that are then spread out on clean cloth and dried completely in the summer sun over the course of 1 to 2 weeks. Once fully dried, trahanas becomes rock hard and can last for up to 2 years in a cool, dry location. Greeks stockpile it because it is incredibly nutritious, high in protein and carbohydrates, and because a small amount cooked in hot water or broth makes a thick, filling soup that can feed an entire family. During the Greek Civil War and the German occupation of World War II, trahanas kept many rural families alive when fresh food was impossible to find. Number 24. Feta cheese preserved in brine. Fresh feta spoils quickly, but Greeks learned long ago that submerging feta in a strong saltwater brine solution completely transforms its shelf life. The brine is made with water and a high concentration of non-iodized salt, and the cheese is kept fully submerged in ceramic pots or glass jars. In this environment, feta can last for up to 12 months without refrigeration, and even longer when refrigerated. Greeks stockpile brine-preserved feta because it provides fat, protein, and calcium, all of which become critically important during food shortages. Homemade feta has been produced in Greek households for centuries, traditionally made from sheep's milk or a blend of sheep and goat milk, pressed into molds, salted, and then submerged in brine for aging. It is a living food preservation system that requires no electricity and no modern technology whatsoever. Number 23. Dried chickpeas. The humble chickpea, known in Greek as revithia, is one of the most deeply embedded legumes in Greek food culture. Greek households in rural areas, particularly on the island of Sifnos and throughout the Peloponnese, have been cooking with dried chickpeas for thousands of years. To dry and store them, fully matured chickpeas are harvested, shelled, and then left to air dry completely in the sun until they become rock hard. Stored in airtight containers away from moisture and pests, dried chickpeas can last indefinitely, with many sources suggesting they remain edible and nutritious for 10 years or longer when properly stored. Greeks stockpile them because they are one of the most calorie-dense and protein-rich plant foods available, and because traditional dishes like revithata, a slow-cooked chickpea stew, require almost nothing else to be a complete and satisfying meal. Number 22. Dried lentils. Known in Greek as fakes, lentils hold an almost sacred place in Greek survival food culture. Unlike many other legumes, lentils do not require soaking before cooking, which makes them incredibly practical when resources are limited. Lentils are harvested and dried naturally, then stored in cloth bags or sealed containers. They last for 5 to 7 years when kept dry and away from light. The traditional Greek lentil soup, fake soupa, made with lentils, olive oil, garlic, and a splash of red wine vinegar, has been a standard Greek household meal for centuries. During periods of famine or economic hardship, fakes was one of the foods that kept working-class Greek families nourished when they could not afford meat. Greeks stockpile dried lentils because they are cheap, highly nutritious, extraordinarily shelf-stable, and because nearly every Greek family already knows how to cook with them from childhood. Number 21. Dried split peas, known as fava. In the context of Greek cooking, fava does not refer to the fava bean as much of the world uses the term. Instead, it refers specifically to yellow split peas, which are a defining ingredient of the famous Santorini fava dip. Split peas are dried during harvest and store for several years without any special treatment beyond keeping them dry and sealed. Greeks stockpile fava because it cooks down into a thick, creamy puree with just water and olive oil, providing a high-protein, high-fiber meal that is both filling and comforting. On the volcanic island of Santorini, where the yellow split peas grow in the mineral-rich soil, fava has been cultivated and stockpiled as a survival food for centuries. It requires minimal cooking time, uses very few other ingredients, and can be eaten hot or cold. Number 20. Dried giant beans, known as gigantes. These large, flat, ivory-colored beans are a beloved part of Greek cuisine and appear in the classic baked dish gigantes plaki, where they are slow-cooked in tomato sauce with herbs. When dried, gigantes can last for 2 to 3 years and are incredibly filling because of their size and starch content. Farmers across northern Greece, particularly in the Prespes region near the Macedonian border, have grown and dried gigantes for generations. The drying process is simple. Beans are left on the vine until fully mature, then removed from their pods and air-dried completely before storage. Greeks stockpile gigantes because a single bag can stretch into multiple meals, and because the beans absorb flavor beautifully from minimal seasonings, meaning you can create a deeply satisfying dish without needing many other ingredients. Number 19. Olive oil. If there is one ingredient that defines Greek food culture at its absolute core, it is olive oil. Greece is one of the top producers of olive oil in the entire world, and Greek households, especially those in rural areas of Crete, the Peloponnese, and Lesbos, often press their own olive oil from trees that have been in their families for generations. Properly stored extra virgin olive oil in a dark sealed container away from heat and light can last 18 to 24 months without going rancid. Greeks do not just cook with olive oil. They preserve other foods in it, use it medicinally, and consider it a fundamental caloric and nutritional resource during difficult times. During World War II and the subsequent Civil War, olive oil was used as currency and as a lifeline for survival across Greek villages. Number 18. Paximatia. These are Greek twice-baked rusks, hard as stone and virtually indestructible. Paximatia are made by baking bread loaves in the oven, then slicing them and returning them to a low oven to dry out completely until all moisture is gone. The result is an extremely hard, dry, biscuit-like bread that, when kept away from moisture, can last for 1 to 2 years without any spoilage. On the island of Crete, barley paximatia, known as kritharinia, have been a cornerstone of the Cretan diet for millennia and were historically carried by sailors, soldiers, and shepherds as travel food. Greeks stockpile paximatia because they are satisfying, calorie-dense, and can be softened simply by dipping them briefly in water or olive oil. The famous Cretan dakos salad is made by rehydrating barley paximatia and topping them with crushed tomato, feta, and olive oil, which shows just how versatile this survival food truly is. Number 17. Dried oregano. Greeks use dried oregano in almost everything they cook, and Greek mountain oregano, known as rigani, is considered far superior in flavor to the oregano found elsewhere in the world. Rigani grows wild across the mountains of mainland Greece and the Greek islands, and Greek families traditionally harvest it in summer, tie it in bunches, and hang it to dry in shaded, airy spaces. Dried correctly, Greek oregano lasts for 1 to 2 years while retaining its intense aromatic oils. Greeks stockpile it not just for flavor, but because oregano has genuine antimicrobial and antioxidant properties that Greeks have recognized intuitively for centuries. A simple meal of bread dipped in olive oil and oregano can feel satisfying and complete in a way that many more complicated foods cannot. Number 16. Honey. Greek honey is globally recognized as some of the finest in the world, particularly thyme honey from the mountains of Crete and Mount Hymettus near Athens. Raw, natural honey is one of the only foods on Earth with a truly indefinite shelf life. Honey has been found in Egyptian tombs that is thousands of years old and still edible. This is because honey's low water content, high sugar concentration, and naturally occurring hydrogen peroxide create an environment where bacteria and mold simply cannot survive. Greek beekeeping traditions go back to ancient times, and rural Greek families often keep their own hives. Greeks stockpile honey as a natural sweetener, a wound treatment, a cough remedy, and a long-term energy source. It also serves as a food preservative in its own right, used to preserve fruits and nuts for extended periods. Number 15. Loukaniko, Greek sausage cured with salt and smoked. Traditional Greek loukaniko is not the fresh sausage you find in modern supermarkets. The traditional version, made across rural Greece and particularly in the Mani region of the Peloponnese and on the island of Cyprus, is made by mixing coarsely ground pork with orange peel, leeks, red wine, coriander seeds, and allspice, then stuffed into natural casings, heavily salted and cold-smoked or air-dried for weeks. This curing and smoking process removes moisture and prevents bacterial growth, allowing the sausage to last for several months without refrigeration. Greeks stockpile cured loukaniko because it provides a concentrated source of fat and protein, and because the curing process is a skill passed down through generations in Greek villages where pig slaughtering season in late autumn produces enough cured meat to last through winter and well into spring. Number 14. Cured olives. Greece produces dozens of varieties of olives including Kalamata, Amphissa, Chalkidiki, and Thrumbas olives from Thassos. Each variety has its own traditional curing method. Some are cured in salt, some in brine, some in olive oil, and some, like the Thrumba olives from Thassos, are wrinkled and cured naturally right on the tree by allowing them to shrivel and ferment. A properly brined or salt-cured olive can last for up to 2 years when stored correctly. Greeks stockpile cured olives because they provide healthy fats and flavor in an otherwise plain diet, and because olive trees have been growing on Greek soil for millennia, making olives one of the most naturally abundant and historically accessible foods in the country. A meal of bread, olives, and cheese represents the most classic Greek survival pantry combination. Number 13. Xenochondros, known as Greek pork and wheat grits. This is a unique preserved food found primarily in Crete and Cyprus. It is made by cooking cracked wheat with salted pork fat or pork broth, sometimes incorporating fresh pork, and then allowing the mixture to dry completely into hard, crumbly pieces. The salt content combined with the complete dehydration makes xenochondros shelf-stable for up to a year. It is reconstituted by simmering in water to create a hearty, thick porridge. In Cretan villages, this was a critical winter food because it combined protein from the pork with carbohydrates from the wheat in a single preserved form. Greeks in Crete still make it today, particularly in villages where the old traditions of the November pig slaughter are maintained, turning every edible part of the animal into something that will last through the coming months. Number 12. Dried figs. The fig tree is one of the most ancient cultivated plants in the Greek world, with evidence of fig cultivation in Greece going back over 11,000 years. Greeks dry figs in the summer sun, threading them on strings or laying them on wooden trays until they are completely dehydrated and concentrated in sweetness. Properly dried figs can last for 6 months to 1 year at room temperature, and much longer when refrigerated or stored in sealed containers. Greeks stockpile dried figs because they are extraordinarily calorie-dense, providing a rapid energy source from their natural sugars, along with significant fiber, potassium, and calcium. On poor islands and in mountain villages where fresh food was scarce in winter, dried figs were sometimes the primary caloric source for weeks at a time during hard seasons. Number 11. Grape must products, specifically petimesi and pastelli. Petimesi is a thick syrup made by slowly boiling down grape must, the juice of freshly pressed wine grapes, until it reduces to roughly 1/10 of its original volume. This creates an extremely concentrated, naturally sweet syrup that has a shelf life of several years due to its high sugar content and acidity. Pastelli is another ancient Greek survival food made by combining petimesi or honey with sesame seeds and boiling the mixture until it sets into a hard, crunchy bar. Pastelli has been eaten in Greece since antiquity and was used by Greek soldiers and sailors as a portable, calorie-dense energy source. Greeks stockpile both petimesi and pastelli because they provide quick energy, require no preparation, and last an extremely long time, making them ideal for both long-term pantry storage and emergency on-the-go nutrition. Number 10. Tuna and sardines preserved in olive oil. While modern canned fish is a more recent development, the Greek tradition of preserving fish in oil and salt goes back thousands of years. Traditional lakarda, which is salted cured bonito or tuna, involves rubbing thick fish fillets in coarse sea salt and allowing them to cure for weeks in ceramic pots, then submerging them in olive oil. Canned sardines in olive oil, known as sardiles, are now a supermarket staple in every Greek household. Commercially canned fish lasts 3 to 5 years, and Greeks stockpile them in bulk because they provide omega-3 fatty acids, protein, and essential minerals without requiring cooking in any complex way. You can eat canned sardines directly from the tin with bread and lemon, making them one of the most practical survival foods in the Greek pantry. Number 9. Sea salt. Greeks have been harvesting sea salt from salt pans across the Aegean for thousands of years. The salt flats of Messaloniki on the western mainland and the salt pans of Naxos are among the most famous. Sea salt has an indefinite shelf life when kept dry, as it is a mineral rather than an organic compound and therefore does not spoil. Greeks stockpile sea salt not only for seasoning, but because salt is the foundation of nearly every food preservation technique on this list, including curing meats, brining cheese and vegetables, and drying fish. Without salt, almost none of the other preservation methods practiced in Greek food culture would be possible. Understanding this, Greek households have historically kept enormous quantities of sea salt on hand, and rural Greek families today still purchase large bags of coarse sea salt as a pantry staple. Number 8. Dried herbs, specifically mountain tea and chamomile. Mountain tea, known as Sai tu vunu or sideritis, grows wild across the mountainous regions of mainland Greece and is one of the most beloved herbal teas in the country. It is harvested in summer, dried in bunches, and stored in paper bags or glass jars where it maintains its medicinal and aromatic properties for up to 2 years. Greek chamomile, known as chamomile, is similarly harvested, dried, and stored. Greeks stockpile dried mountain tea and chamomile, not just for pleasure, but for their recognized health benefits, including anti-inflammatory, digestive, and immune-supporting properties. During times of illness or stress, which are exactly the conditions that accompany survival situations, having access to medicinal herbs that can be brewed into a soothing drink is something that Greek grandmothers have always understood to be essential. Number 7. Wine vinegar. Greek wine vinegar, particularly red wine vinegar made from local grape varieties, has been produced in Greece since antiquity. It was used by ancient Greeks to preserve vegetables, as a component of sauces, and as a disinfectant. Properly made and stored wine vinegar is essentially self-preserving because its high acidity, typically 4 to 8% acetic acid, prevents the growth of harmful bacteria and mold. A bottle of Greek red wine vinegar stored in a cool, dark location can last for several years without significant degradation. Greeks stockpile vinegar because it is one of the primary ingredients in tursi, the traditional Greek pickled vegetable preparation, and because it adds brightness and preservation to dozens of other dishes. It also plays a role in food safety during emergencies when washing produce in clean water may not be possible. Number 6. Tursi, Greek pickled vegetables. Tursi is the Greek tradition of lacto-fermenting or pickling vegetables in a vinegar and salt brine, and it has been practiced in Greek households for centuries. Common vegetables used include cauliflower, carrots, celery, green tomatoes, peppers, and cabbage. The vegetables are packed tightly into large glass or ceramic jars, covered with a brine of water, wine vinegar, and coarse sea salt, and sealed. Properly made tursi stored in a cool location can last for up to a year. Greeks stockpile tursi because it provides essential vitamins, particularly vitamin C, that would otherwise be difficult to obtain during winter months or during food shortages when fresh produce is unavailable. The fermentation process also creates beneficial probiotics that support gut health, which ancient Greeks recognized through practice even if not through scientific terminology. Number 5. Dried pasta and hylopites. While pasta is now available everywhere commercially, Greece has its own traditional dried pasta called hylopites, small flat square or rectangular egg noodles that are dried completely after being cut and can be stored for up to 2 years. Hylopites are made by mixing semolina flour, eggs, milk, and salt into a stiff dough, rolling it thin, cutting it into small pieces, and spreading them on clean cloth to dry completely in the open air, a process that traditionally happened on summer rooftops across Greek villages. Greeks stockpile hylopites and commercially dried pasta because they are one of the most calorie-efficient carbohydrate sources available because they cook quickly, require minimal water, and can be combined with almost anything else in the pantry to create a complete meal. A bowl of hylopites with olive oil and feta is one of the simplest, most beloved comfort foods in Greece. Number 4. Greek mountain thyme and other wild herbs preserved in olive oil. Across the islands and mainland mountains of Greece, wild thyme, sage, rosemary, and savory grow in abundance. Greek households have long preserved these herbs by submerging them in olive oil in sealed glass jars, which both preserves the herbs and infuses the olive oil with their aromatic compounds. Herb-infused olive oil stored in a cool, dark location lasts for 6 months to a year before the quality begins to decline. Greeks stockpile herb-preserved olive oil because it serves a dual purpose, providing preserved herbs and flavored oil in a single container, making it an extraordinarily efficient pantry item. During difficult times, a drizzle of thyme-infused olive oil over bread or legumes can transform an otherwise monotonous survival meal into something that feels like home cooking, which matters enormously for psychological resilience during hardship. Number 3. Dried beans and fasolia. The broad category of Greek dried beans, particularly the medium-sized white beans known as fasolia, form the backbone of one of Greece's most iconic dishes, fasolata, the traditional white bean soup that is often called the national dish of Greece. Fasolata is made with dried white beans, olive oil, tomatoes, carrots, celery, and onions, slowly cooked until the beans are creamy and the broth is rich. Dried white beans can last for 3 to 5 years when stored in sealed containers away from moisture and light. Greeks stockpile dried fasolia in enormous quantities because fasolata has sustained the Greek population through wars, famines, occupations, and economic crises for hundreds of years. It is nutritionally complete, providing protein, fiber, complex carbohydrates, and essential minerals, and it is made entirely from pantry staples that do not require refrigeration, making it the ultimate Greek survival meal. Number 2. Tahini, sesame paste. Tahini has been produced in the Eastern Mediterranean and Greece since antiquity. It is made by toasting sesame seeds until golden, then grinding them into a smooth, oily paste. Because of the high natural oil content of sesame seeds and the toasting process, tahini has a long shelf life, typically 1 to 2 years when stored in a sealed container in a cool, dark location. Greek tahini, known as tahini in Greek as well, is eaten spread on bread, mixed with honey for a calorie-dense snack called tahinopita, and used in tahinasupa, a tahini soup eaten during periods of Orthodox Christian fasting when meat and dairy are forbidden. Greeks stockpile tahini specifically because of the frequent fasting periods in the Greek Orthodox calendar, during which animal products are completely off-limits, and tahini becomes one of the primary protein and fat sources available, a role it has played in Greek Christian households for over 1,000 years. Number 1. Olive oil and bread, specifically the combination of Lagana flatbread and olive oil. This may surprise you, but when Greeks think of absolute survival nutrition and cultural identity combined in a single food pairing, nothing surpasses the ancient combination of bread and olive oil. Lagana is a traditional Greek flatbread made with flour, water, yeast, olive oil, and sesame seeds, historically associated with Clean Monday, the first day of Orthodox Christian Lent. But the deeper tradition is simply this: bread made from grain, in whatever form available, combined with olive oil, has been the foundational survival food of the Greek world since the Bronze Age. The ability to make bread from stored flour, water, and wild yeast, and to eat it with olive oil pressed from trees that have lived for centuries, represents the most Greek of all survival strategies. Flour stored properly in sealed containers can last 1 to 2 years. Olive oil lasts 18 to 24 months. Together, they provide fat, carbohydrates, and enough calories to sustain life, which is exactly why this combination sits at the very top of the Greek survival pantry. Not because it is fancy, but because it is ancient, simple, and unbreakable. These 25 foods reveal something extraordinary about Greek civilization. Survival in Greece was never about hoarding random supplies. It was about building a deeply connected food culture where preservation, flavor, nutrition, and identity were all woven together into a single way of living. The foods that Greeks stockpile are not emergency rations sitting forgotten in a basement. They are ingredients used every single week in Greek kitchens, which means that when hard times come, Greek families already know exactly what to do with them. That is the real secret behind the Greek survival pantry. It was never separate from everyday life. It was everyday life.